tercera.
No, la primera en ese momento. Ahorita el cue hasta ahorita, ¿vale?
Okay.
Les voy a ir dando el cue.
Termina y empieza.
Les voy a ir dando el cue para que no nos...
Sí.
¿No? Así como...
Oye, y déjame arrancar a mí. O sea, yo doy la bienvenida, te paso la palabra.
No, y le das el agradecimiento.
Doy la bienvenida, te paso la palabra. Tú das la bienvenida. ¿Qué tal? Déjalo pasar, por favor. Jenny, te presento a Guillermo Peña Panti y el rector de la universidad, Jorge Díaz Cuero, es el director del colegio Peterson.
Mucho gusto. Creo que nos conocimos en el evento de White
Claro,
sí,
en el White Club.
felicidades, traen un proyectazo aquí.
Yo fui graduado de la primerísima generación de los colegios Peterson.
¿En serio?
Sí, y sus papás eran...
Hace 10 años.
Ah, exacto, claro. En ese entonces solo había primaria, justamente.
¿Cuántos colegios son ahora ya? Bueno, tenemos aquí en la Ciudad de México 4 planteles, un kinder que se dieron para el Colegio Grande aquí en Coajimalpa, y en el sur tenemos kinder y primaria en el Pedregal. Entonces, ajá, ¿cómo?
No, pues sí, ya muchos años. Yo soy graduado de
Oye, ¿tus papás cómo están? Bueno, ya son
Camisa de botón.
95 años de edad y están
¿Que la traiga?
vikingos.
Que la recuerda. ¿Era para eso?
Su mamá 85 años y todos los días se va de los archivos a Pedregal.
Esto lo andaba yo, que lo andaba.
No todos los días, pero sí,
Una
2
vocación,
veces a la
¿no?
semana.
Una vocación.
Sí,
Qué gustazo verte.
no, igual, gracias por la invitación.
No, al contrario.
Trajimos a un grupito de 10
Qué
gente,
bueno,
entonces,
me da mucho gusto. Y los estudiantes también que vengan a conocer acá, porque hay una oferta educativa bien interesante.
Bueno, 4 son las mejores promedios de la generación, los trajimos de
¿Ah, sí?
Ah, qué bueno.
Sí, padrísimo. Les va a encantar el evento.
va a estar.
The reserve seats are for who?
Pauli,
For you.
Pauli, o sea, los que están reservados para que...
Is it for the panelists? Is it for the jet lag?
He quedado re mal ahí en el consejo. I think it's time for me to...
This is our second call before starting. Second call. Bienvenido a la Universidad de la Libertad. Antes de comenzar, te compartimos el protocolo de protección civil en caso de sismos. Conserva la calma y sigue las instrucciones que el personal señale. En caso de sismo, adopta una posición de seguridad en tu lugar y sigue las indicaciones de los brigadistas para evacuar el edificio. El personal de protección civil te apoyará en todo momento. Tu seguridad y el bienestar de todos nuestros asistentes son nuestra máxima prioridad. This is our third call. Third call. The Radical Innovation Summit is about to start.
Muy buenos días a todos. ¿Qué tal? Muy buenos días. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos a esta segunda edición del Radical Innovation Summit. Me acompaña mi gran amigo y colega Guillermo Peña Panti, que va a explicar un poco más de la dinámica de lo que nos depara hoy en día. Yo quiero agradecer sobre todo esta maravillosa casa de la Universidad de la Libertad, que con este evento arranca el segundo ciclo escolar. Un aplauso, ya cumplimos un año aquí en la Universidad de la Libertad. Naturalmente el gran apoyo también del Centro Ricardo B. Salinas Pliego y un agradecimiento muy especial a nuestros grandes amigos de Atlas Network, varios que están aquí hoy, particularmente Lyle Swim, el Chief Innovation Officer. Este es uno de los ejemplos de los convenios y las alianzas que está haciendo la universidad con instituciones de la mayor altura alrededor del mundo y que nos traen la posibilidad de poder celebrar este tipo de diálogos. Para arrancar ahora, le paso la palabra. Creo que va a hablar en inglés. Aquí va a ser en inglés and in Spanish as well. Entonces, Guillermo, gracias.
Thank you, Roberto. So welcome, everyone. It's lovely to have you all here. And just a very quick initial announcement. If you need translation equipment, we have translation down here. But in general, it will be in English, most of the panels. So thanks for coming down. Thanks for giving us your time. And thanks for coming to celebrate on our closing of our first year and our opening of our second year of operations. We're very excited to welcome a new group coming in next week. So the plan is we'll have several Cornerstone talks right at the beginning. Then we'll do 3 sets of panels, and we'll have a nice lunch, and then we end up the program with the Freedom to Innovate Shark Tank, which will be a very exciting competition again this year. So to start, I would like to welcome Petr Čekerevac, who is our senior fellow at the Atlas Network and who has done for months and months been planning on doing a great cohort to come here for this event. So thank you please, Petr, come on in.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, and on behalf of Atlas Network, welcome to the 2024 Radical Innovation Summit. I want to thank our hosts and partners here in Mexico City for making this event possible. And I'm happy to see that it is becoming a tradition after the first Radical Innovation Summit last year. Hopefully there will be many more in the future. Today we are witnessing sort of a battle of narratives in the world where there is on one side many reasons to be pessimistic with all these wars, culture wars, economic problems, just the sense that many systems are failing us and we cannot trust them anymore. But on the other side, so many, people generally embrace this pessimistic point of view because it's all over the place. It's in social media, it's in the media, it's all you see. But on the other side, there's so many exciting developments in biotech, healthcare, artificial intelligence, finance, and all these things are improving lives of the people around the world, billions of people around the world every day, but they get overlooked. And we could have many, many more of these exciting innovations if we only let the builders build. But builders are constrained by politicians who don't understand them, constrained by outdated, nonsensical regulations, constrained often by cultures that don't really appreciate success, ambition, and wealth creation. So I think there is a movement for us who are excited by innovation, who are inspired by free markets and progress to take a bigger role. We can help remove these obstacles to prosperity and really enable builders to build. We should do so by relying on optimism, by relying on ambition, by relying on a positive vision for the world where there is abundance for all, and by relying on local knowledge and the fact that free markets and free enterprise are the best vehicles for problem solving at scale. And in this effort, we should not rely on politicians or political parties, or we should not look into political allegiances, but we should only focus on principles and policies based on those principles. So whoever shares these principles can be part of this effort, and whoever wants to build better public policies can be a part of this effort. So today, we are going to apply these principles to the debate on the regulation of AI, regulation of finance, and the creation of more environments where radical innovation can flourish.
And also see my slides, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I hope that you enjoy this event today, and I'll see you during the breaks. Thank you.
Somebody have to tell me what to do. I don't know what to do.
Thank you, Petr.
Tell me when to
Muchas
go for
gracias,
whatever. I don't know when to do what.
una persona clave en el desarrollo de esta gran casa, de los contenidos que se ofrecen y ciertamente de la idea de celebrar este Radical Innovation Summit en México, es nuestro rector. Jorge Díaz Cuervo, le damos la bienvenida.
Gracias, Roberto. Hace año y medio, en enero del 2023, fui invitado a un evento maravilloso en la ciudad de Antigua, Guatemala, organizado por una de las universidades aliadas más importantes para nosotros, que es la Universidad Francisco Marroquín, en un evento que se llama el Antigua Forum. Y ahí, pues, conocí a Petar. Petar estaba como seguramente los 10 proyectos que ayer y antier estuvieron trabajándose en el Hotel Intercontinental, pues con la ilusión de presentar su proyecto. Su proyecto es pues precisamente crear un foro, un Radical Innovation Summit, y a mí me llamó mucho la atención su propuesta. En ese momento la Universidad de la Libertad estaba en construcción, todavía no existía este campus, estábamos en obra. Y le propuse, bueno, ¿por qué no arrancamos el Radical Innovation Summit en la Universidad de la Libertad? ¿Y por qué no hacemos que el evento inaugural de la Universidad de la Libertad, en septiembre de ese mismo año, 2023, sea en torno a Radical Innovation Summit? Y agradezco mucho la confianza de Petar, la confianza en que este era un buen lugar para tener un evento de este tipo. Y hoy, pues me da mucho gusto tener la segunda edición de este Radical Innovation Summit, en donde se conjuntan dos proyectos que nacieron prácticamente al mismo tiempo. El proyecto de Petar, el Radical Innovation Summit, y este proyecto encabezado por Ricardo Salinas Pliego, la Universidad de la Libertad. Y quiero agradecer encarecidamente a Atlas Network, por supuesto muchas gracias, Lyle, por estar aquí con nosotros. A Brad Lips, lamento mucho que no esté Brad con nosotros, pero gracias por la confianza en la Universidad de la Libertad. La alianza con Atlas Network es muy importante para nosotros porque compartimos muchos valores, pero uno fundamental, el de la libertad, el de impulsar y crear entornos de libertad que nos permitan a los seres humanos ser innovadores, ser creativos, competir, y eso es lo que nosotros estamos convencidos genera prosperidad y riqueza. Así es que bienvenidas, bienvenidos todos a la Universidad de la Libertad. Estoy seguro que este será un día en el que nos llevaremos muchas ideas, en el que reflexionaremos sobre el rumbo que está tomando nuestro planeta, nuestros países, y estoy seguro que saldremos con renovados ánimos para seguir impulsando espacios de libertad, de innovación, radicales y disruptivos. Bienvenidos, buenos días y muchas gracias. 3 minutos exactamente. No, 3 minutos exactamente.
Muchas gracias, Rector. So now to start with the official part, I guess, of the program, now we move into our first Cornerstone talk. And for this first one, it's a Cornerstone talk on AI, between control and utility. So part of how these Cornerstone talks are arranged is they are intros to the 3 panel conversations that we're going to have later. So in this one, I'd like to introduce, there we go, Robin Hanson, Associate Professor of Economics at George Mason University, who I do hope that we're going to have a close relation soon in the future for Universidad de la Libertad and George Mason University. So please welcome Robin Hanson.
But where can I see it? I have to look behind myself? Somebody was telling me there's a screen. Okay. Hi. Go ahead. Hi. Hello? The button's not working? Yeah. It's not changing when I push the button. Yes, that's what. No. Okay, next.
Next. Yep.
All right. Hello, welcome. people are going crazy scared of AI lately. You see people trying to make regulation and plans because they're scared that AI will kill us all, they say. And they compare it to aliens coming from another star system. We see they're on the way. We know they're going to get here soon. Surely we would do something and we'd be scared and we'd be trying to defend ourselves. That's their story about AI. Now, in fact, AI isn't going to suddenly change all at once, and it's going to be made by big companies who are going to test it and monitor it more than any other product ever. And they have strong incentives not to kill people with it, because that's bad for business. So in fact, AI isn't really that big of a problem, but I still want to address their main concerns directly next. So the generic problem here is, it's sort of the fear of other. Basically, there's an other you can imagine. They are different than us. They might be more powerful than us, and therefore we should be afraid of them and do whatever we can to stop them from being more powerful than us because they're an other. Next. So think about evolution in general, natural selection in general. Here we have sort of descendants in time. Let's go back to the previous, there we go. We have descendants going down in time, and each organism or whatever it is, it has descendants. And you have genes, which is just another name for whatever it is inside you that makes your descendants similar to you and have features like you. And these things can change without limit. Over billions of years, we have changed enormously. But there's two key things that evolution tends to encode in organisms. Two key instincts. One is resisting rivals. If you see something else at the same time as you that's competing with you for resources, that if they win, their descendants will be different than your descendants. Evolution has encoded creatures with the habit of being suspicious and wary of those rivals and wanting to resist them. But equally strong an evolutionary instinct is the instinct to help and promote your descendants, even when they're different from you. That is, your children, your grandchildren, they will be different from you. They are different from you. And even so, you want to help them. You expect them to be more powerful than you. And even so, you expect that if there's a conflict, eventually they will win the conflict with you because eventually you will make them more powerful than you. And even then, you help them and you indulgently help them even if they're different. Next. So these are, imagine a tree of descendants. And again, there are coexisting things to you, your rivals, and you are suspicious innately of your rivals, wary of your rivals, even if they're your cousin, your coworker at work. They're coexisting with you. They're competing with you. If they win, the descendants are more like them, less like you. You are wary of your rivals. But your descendants, you are to be indulgent. Help your descendants. Even sacrifice for your descendants. There are species where the children eat their parents. And evolution has made that happen. And as many of you parents may know, your kids kind of eat you in some ways too. It's a bit painful, but we still have this strong instinct to help out our children. Next. So think of an analogy to space. Earth versus space humans. At the moment, all humans are on Earth, right? But someday, some of our descendants may live in space. They will be the space humans. Now, later on, of course, the space humans may, in fact, have conflicts with the Earth humans. And the space is bigger, so eventually the space humans will win any conflicts with Earth humans, though they may have conflicts with themselves that distract them. You could say the following story. Look, Earth humans in the future are at risk from space humans. If we don't do something now, our dear Earth descendants may be at risk to being exploited and hurt by our space descendants. So we should prevent anyone from going into space, and that will solve the problem of space humans beating on or mistreating Earth humans. That doesn't make sense as a policy, right? Right now, yes, we are Earth humans. We aren't intrinsically Earth humans. Our descendants will both be Earth humans and space humans. And we now care about both of them. We anticipate eventually there will be sibling rivalries where our descendants may have conflicts with each other, but that doesn't mean we favor Earth over space humans in general. We want to indulge and help both of our kinds of descendants, the Earth and the space descendants. We don't want to prevent any humans from going into space to solve the problem that there might be conflicts between space humans and Earth humans. You can understand these rivals don't exist right now. There are no space humans now, get it? At the moment, these are all our descendants, and so our attitude should be the attitude toward descendants, to try to promote all of them and minimize their conflicts to some degree if we could, as all parents try to minimize the conflicts between their children, grandchildren, etc. But that doesn't mean you sort of enslave one of your children to prevent that child from maybe somehow winning in a conflict against your other children. You care about all of your children. Next. So, artificial intelligence right now are our descendants. That's the key point. They don't exist yet, first. Second, when they do exist, they will inherit from us many features. If there are aliens out there and they make AI, their AI will be more like them, and our AI will be more like us. Why? Well, first, we're going to make them. We can't help but make them in our image. That's what we're doing now with large language models. It's making them in our image. Secondly, we're going to make them to sit in the slots available in our society and economy, and so far there's our human-sized slots for human kind of minds that think and act in human ways. Those are the available slots in our economy for putting AIs in, and that's another reason we will make AIs like us. So AIs are our descendants. We will also have bio-squishy descendants, like you guys are, bio-squishy, and they may coexist then, and they may have sibling rivalries then, in the sense that they may have conflicts then. Yes, we should try to anticipate and maybe minimize those conflicts, but we shouldn't enslave the AIs or never make them until we can assure they're perfectly enslaved and never would have any conflicts with our other descendants. That's just a crazy thing to do to your kids, is to enslave them for the risk that they might have conflicts with your other kids. AIs now don't exist, and they are far from being human level, and it's not going to happen in the next 10 years, sorry. But we still have exciting progress. I was an AI researcher for 9 years, from 84 to 93 at Lockheed and NASA. So I have some knowledge of the whole long history I've seen, and we've had relatively steady progress, but with lumps. And we're now seeing a lump, like lumps we've seen before, but we're still a long way from the finish line. And let's keep going. And yes, when they start to be more capable, then there are more things they can do wrong. That's just like with a child. So a teenager can cause more harm than a toddler. Toddlers can cause a lot of harm, but teenagers can cause even more harm. And so yes, you have to watch your teenagers more, perhaps, than your toddlers in some ways for the extreme harms they might cause. But they're also maturing and can better often be left to their own devices without careful watching as you experience that they are maturing and able to take on responsibilities. And eventually, that's what AIs will be like. We will be giving them more responsibility and watch how they do with it, etc. And there's no need to enslave them, okay? That's the key message here. Simple thing, evolution gives you two instincts. One, to be suspicious of coexisting rivals. Two, to indulge your descendants. AI are not a coexisting rival now, not for a long time. Now they are your descendants. Indulge them. That's it.
Thank you very much, Robin. Well, now we have an initial base for what I hope will get a spicy debate on AI. There's so many opinions right now happening, and there's many points of view, and I think that this will be one of the most important conversations today. But going now to our second Cornerstone talk, I'd like to invite Emile Phaneuf from the Center for Market Education, which is based in Malaysia, but he lives in Brazil, and as we know, so this is a global community now with freedom to move from many places, and as we've had the conversation, the importance of digital nomads and movement across the world to be able to move freely. So now, Emile, please come in, and he'll be talking to us about the freedom to transact, crypto regulations moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Is this on? Okay, I can hear myself. Hi, yes, my name is Emile Phaneuf, like you said, I live in Brazil. I'm here to talk about the idea that we should take back innovation in currency. It's very much a Hayekian idea. Hayek in 1976 wrote on the denationalization of money and competition in currency, so it sort of piggybacks on that. Different countries around the world have different regulatory environments for cryptocurrency. There's, I think, 3 North African countries, and Saudi Arabia and China, and a handful of others that have general bans on cryptocurrency. On the other side of the spectrum, there's El Salvador, which made it legal tender along with the dollar. And the rest of the countries are essentially in between. In the case of the US, and my understanding is also Mexico, is it's legal, but it's sort of, the regulatory environment is very hostile. So, one thing that I've noticed is that anti-money laundering tends to be a big problem in terms of the regulatory environment. It stifles innovation. It scares away users. In the case of the United States, anti-money laundering came about primarily back with the Bank Secrecy Act in 1970. It was initially started not to be an end in itself, but as a tool to cut down on greater crimes, such as drug trafficking and so on. These days, the cost to the private sector is in the many millions of dollars per successful conviction of someone involved in money laundering. The majority of the cases and successful convictions aren't actually on the national level, aren't actually by the FBI, they're by the IRS, which tells me it's more about tax compliance than anything else. Around the world, country after country, when they launch their regulatory framework for cryptocurrencies, what they say is that they're launching their framework to be in compliance with the standards set forth by the Financial Action Task Force. So what is that? It's a G7 organization, and it is largely funded by the United States. And it has its standards, and these standards are all around anti-money laundering. So how's that working out? A couple years ago, there was a developer. I forget his name, but he was arrested and charged and found guilty and is now serving in a prison sentence in the Netherlands for launching what's called a mixer, an Ethereum mixer called Tornado Cash. And it essentially gives users of Ethereum privacy on the Ethereum blockchain. And he was charged with money laundering. Not even necessarily that he himself money laundered, but in a roundabout way, they say he's guilty of money laundering because they said Russian hackers with ties to North Korea used it. Okay, so now we've got developers being charged for not even for things that they did, but things that other people did. And remember that when the Bank Secrecy Act in 1970 came about with anti-money laundering in it, anti-money laundering wasn't supposed to be an end in itself. It wasn't supposed to be a charge all by itself. It was supposed to be something to help them cut down on charges that actually, for crimes that actually have victims more directly. More recently, there's been a Bitcoin mixer called Samurai Wallet, and the same thing happened. They've charged the people, I think, in Portugal, and so they're awaiting trial to possibly go to jail for anti-money laundering. That's what they're being charged for, anti-money laundering. So if you build tools as a regulator or a founder that gives privacy to people more generally, they'll accuse you of money laundering and be sent to jail, potentially. So that's a big problem for innovation when developers have to worry about jail time. What I'd argue is we need to push back in a couple directions. On one end, we need to be making the moral case for financial privacy, be educating regulators, be explaining to them not only the humanitarian benefits of financial privacy and innovation in currency, but also explaining how it can be politically costly for them to alienate constituents who demand financial privacy and demand innovation in currency. And on the other hand, there's a reason why we're talking about innovation in currency, and that reason is that there's a currency that they actually can't stop. Because if they could have stopped it, they would have already. And if they knew who it was, they would have put him in jail and charged him with money laundering. Satoshi Nakamoto. So Bitcoin, as far as I can tell, is Hayek's sly roundabout way of introducing something that the government can't stop and bringing back competition in currency. So, thank you very much. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Emile. So now we have our second subject set for the day. We move on to the third cornerstone and final cornerstone talk of this morning. Dan Rothschild, who is creating environments for ongoing radical innovation in healthcare. Sorry. Dan Rothschild will be leading us into the third conversation, which is creating environments for ongoing radical innovation in healthcare, energy, transportation, and finance. So we're moving now from basic technologies to application in these technologies and what's happening in this space. So Dan Rothschild is at the Mercatus Center, also at George Mason University. So please, welcome, the stage is yours.
Okay. So I want to begin by pointing out that everyone in this room is really weird. And I mean that in two distinct senses. The first is in the sense that Joe Henrich uses the term, that you're by and large from countries, or you've adopted the culture of countries that are Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. And these are communities, these are societies that are defined by individualism, consistent economic growth, cultural support for creativity, strong institutions, rule of law, and high levels of trust. So just by virtue of coming out of weird countries and weird societies, you start with a really high baseline for innovation across the board. But you're also weird in another sense. You're spending your time here at a conference in Mexico City on radical innovation and how we can get more of it. It's the same spirit that caused the mountain climber to, when asked why he wanted to climb Everest, to say, because it's there. You care about innovation for its own sake because we can, because it's there. But most people don't share this commitment to radical innovation for its own sake. In fact, this spirit is only shared by a tiny percentage of the population. What most people want in their lives is order, predictability, stability. That means that the embrace of radical innovation for its own sake will always be a minority viewpoint. But still, innovation persists. Arguably, we're living in the most innovative time in human history. And as Matt Ridley constantly reminds us, we're certainly living in the best time in human history. So how do we square that circle? How do we take people's preference for stability and against innovation and put that against the fact that we see innovation around us happening all the time, and that we believe in this room that we can see even more of it? To begin to answer that question, I want to make 3 suggestions on how people in this room can improve the culture and the climate in which radical innovation can occur. Raise your hand if you would say that you like politics and you enjoy the company of politicians. Okay, I thought so. Look, you may not like politics. A few of you apparently do. You may not like politicians, but there's no exemption to the organizing principles of politics for projects that you particularly like and that are particularly innovative or new technologies with massive potential. In fact, they're even more subject to the rules of politics than more marginal changes. So these rules are pretty simple. Political actors are self-interested. Incumbents benefit from the status quo and from regulatory capture. And that the median voter theorem is usually correct. And these rules still apply. In fact, you could argue that they apply especially because of this process that we've seen of massive decentralization over the course of the last 20 years. But do not despair. This does not mean that to advance innovation that you have to go all in on politics. You don't have to donate to campaigns. You don't have to get involved with political parties. You certainly don't have to pick a side. But what you do have to do is to be prepared for any innovation of consequence to come under significant and sustained political attack and face challenges and scrutiny in the public sector. And when that happens, you need to be prepared to play defense. So that means being prepared to advocate for innovation in a way consistent with what I said. The self-interest of political actors, the benefits that incumbents receive from the status quo, and the fact that the median voter pretty much gets what he wants. So let's discuss these one at a time. First, when you're engaging in the policy arena, figure out what people's incentives are and how you can help them. And I mean the specific person that you are talking to. Figure out their incentives and how to work with them. If you're explaining to a congressional staffer, for instance, how a new technology works and what it means, help her understand what she needs to know so that she can sound smart for her boss. Bear in mind also that elected officials are usually not leaders, they're followers. So if you can say about your idea, about your innovation, it was tried somewhere else, it worked, and those people were reelected, that carries a lot of water. And this is especially true at the state level. The United States, Mexico, many other federal republics have an enormous amount of policy that's set on the state level that can be beneficial or detrimental to innovation. States and state political leaders look to one another for cues about what to do and what not to do. Second, when you're thinking about changing the status quo, rigorously think about what you can do at the margin. How do we get more good things and fewer bad things? Don't try to just set your baseline as get all the good things and have none of the bad things. So this is what we saw in America with telecom deregulation and the approach that the US government took to the internet in the 1990s. We didn't get rid of the Federal Communications Commission, but we did set up a pretty good regulatory system that unleashed a massive amount of innovation. And third, build coalitions. Not just the coalitions of people in this room who agree with you. Build winning coalitions, build majority coalitions. This is what we saw with Uber a decade ago. They moved into a regulatory gray zone, and they created coalitions of users who were going to stand up for them and advocate for the company and for the new technology. They built a user base that was their best advocates. Their user base became the median voter. Second, be clear about the difference between innovations that solve problems and innovations that create new human capabilities. Be optimistic in both, but recognize how they're different. There's a tendency to talk about innovation primarily in the sense of problems they solve. And sometimes this makes sense. So think about micronuclear reactors, mRNA vaccines, cloud computing, or telemedicine. But a lot of innovation isn't about solving problems. It's about creating new capabilities for mankind. So think here about CRISPR, smartphones, artificial neural networks, and yes, cryptocurrencies. These are all innovations that create new capabilities, but they don't necessarily solve immediate problems. Sometimes the less an innovation solves an immediate problem, the more likely its proponents are to kind of overclaim about what it can do immediately. And this causes damage to reputation and disappointment down the line. So if an innovation solves an immediate problem, great. Shout it from the rooftops. Demonstrate it to anybody who will listen. Incessantly work to draw the connection between a problem that people face and how your innovation, your technology can solve it. But if an innovation doesn't solve an immediate problem, don't try to pigeonhole it into a system that doesn't work. As my friend Ben Reinhardt from Speculative Technologies writes, capabilities are not just solutions in disguise. It is substantively different to make something that makes people not sick and not sad versus something that makes people healthy and happy. So when innovation creates new capabilities, you're not fixing a problem. You're showing an optimistic vision for the future. You're showing a better world. So when you're advocating for innovation, be clear about what it is that you're advocating for. Separate solutions from capabilities. Both are valuable, but they're not the same thing. And third, and finally, let's build a free and open society together. If you're thinking about going GALT, I'd ask you to reconsider. Innovation is primarily a function of social institutions, and these institutions need to be preserved and improved, and your voice matters to this process. Innovation builds on itself. It needs networks. It only thrives within supporting institutions. It's subject to cluster effects and to power laws, and it's deeply embedded in cultural context. So, as I said at the outset of my talk, our weird culture is uniquely innovative within human history. There's no law of nature that it had to be this way up to this point, and there's no reason that it has to be this way going forward. If you live in the United States, congratulations, you've won the innovation lottery. I know it can seem that the tide is turning against innovation from time to time. So let's fix that. Be an optimistic voice for innovation. If it doesn't, and the US stops innovating, the world loses its research and development workshop. It's as simple as that. If you live outside the United States, say somewhere like Europe, or Mexico, or California, come join us in the United States. We need more innovators, and we need more people making a positive, optimistic, visionary case for innovation going forward. If you choose to stay in your own home country, so much the better. Be an advocate for innovation wherever you are. Be an advocate for the policies that let innovations thrive. But whatever you do, please don't drop out. Please don't go GALT. We need innovators in our society. And we need those innovators to make the case for more innovation going forward, for the policy environment, the social environment, and the shared cultural ideas that support that kind of innovation. Thank you very much.
Bravo, Dan. Thank you very much for your words. Innovation, indeed. This is a house of innovation. We pride ourselves